This happened only a few months ago. I'm Emily, 32, and I'm a freelance photographer. I needed peace after moving from the city, so I decided to visit Cedar Bay, a small town by a lake. I rented a cozy cottage by the water. At first, it felt calm and beautiful, and I thought it would inspire me. I've never stopped thinking about it since. On my second evening, I stepped out onto the porch. The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in soft colors. I walked down to the dock to take some photos. That's when I noticed an old man sitting alone at the end of the dock. He stared intently at the lake. I waved to him, hoping to be friendly, but he didn't even look my way. His face remained hidden in the shadows. A shiver ran down my spine, but I shrugged it off. Maybe he was just lost in thought. As the days passed, I kept seeing strange things. One afternoon, while I was near the shore taking photos, I spotted a disheveled woman. She was pacing back and forth, mumbling to herself about lost treasures. I tried to snap a picture of her, but my camera jammed. When I looked up, she had vanished. I shook my head, thinking I must have imagined it. Later that night, as I settled into my cottage, I heard laughter coming from the woods. It sounded like children playing, but I saw no one around. My heart started racing. I wanted to go see, but something stopped me. An odd chill settled over me. Was I just hearing things? I wasn't sure. The next morning, I tried to capture the beauty of the lake again. As I looked through my photos, I noticed something strange. In one picture, there seemed to be figures in the background that I hadn't seen when I took it. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. I thought I was playing tricks on myself. Later, while I was packing my camera, I heard the laughter again, clearer this time. I stepped out of my cottage but saw nothing. My heart was racing. I glanced at my camera, and the same figures appeared again, closer this time. I felt uneasy. I wanted to believe it was all in my head. Finally, I returned to the dock where I first saw the old man. I approached slowly. Suddenly, he turned toward me. His gaze pierced. I opened my mouth to speak, but he raised a finger to his lips. "Shh," he whispered. Then he pointed toward the water. I looked, but there was nothing there. I felt cold. I turned back, but he had vanished. Just when I thought I had my bearings, I heard a child's voice whisper, "Come play with us." I turned, my heart racing. I was completely alone. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to run, but my legs felt like stone. I glanced back at the water. It looked too still, too dark. I felt a weight in the air. In that moment, I realized I was not the only one at the lake. There were secrets hiding in the shadows. I took one last look around. Then I turned back toward my cottage, the laughter echoing behind me. I never looked back again. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. It was as if the lake itself was watching. I decided to leave the cottage, to push through the unease. The sun was shining, and I convinced myself that I could enjoy the day. I grabbed my camera and headed towards the town. As I walked along the trail, every rustle of leaves put me on edge. The laughter from the night before echoed in my mind. I tried to focus on the views around me, hoping to capture something beautiful to restore my confidence. The trees were full of colors, and the air smelled sweet, but the serenity felt off. I reached the main street and found a little cafe. As I ordered a coffee, I casually mentioned the cottage's odd happenings to the barista. She looked at me closely, her eyes widening. "You've seen them, then?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have to be careful. They don't like strangers." "Who?" I asked, my stomach twisting. She glanced out the window before continuing. "The children. They play by the lake. People have disappeared trying to find them. The treasure." I couldn't listen anymore. I paid quickly and left. I needed to think. The whole town appeared normal, yet I felt like I was trapped in a storybook wreathed in fog. I wandered back toward the lake, my thoughts racing. Once I got back to the dock, I stood still, apprehensive. Should I take out my camera? I remembered the figures from the photos. I needed clarity, something tangible to grasp. Hesitant, I lifted my camera and aimed it at the water. That's when I saw it, a flash of movement beneath the surface. My breath caught. A shimmer, then a figure emerged, just for an instant. I squinted, hoping for a better view. It was a child, with dark hair and a wide grin, but there was something off about him. He waved, and my heart plummeted. "Why do you wave?" I called out, my voice trembling. He just laughed again, that same cheerful sound echoing from the woods. I lowered my camera, suddenly feeling foolish for any thoughts I had of capturing this moment. I thought about the barista's warning. The children didn't like strangers. Without thinking, I backed away slowly. I was moving too fast. The child's laugh morphed, echoing, shifting into something sinister. Chills ran down my back, and I turned, nearly stumbling as I hurried down the dock. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. As I reached the safety of the path, the laughter faded, but my heart was still racing. What had I just seen? While I looked back toward the water, a shadow moved at the edge of the trees. Someone stood there, watching me. I couldn't see them clearly, but I knew they were watching. My heart raced as I stumbled backward. I turned and ran, my pulse pounding in my ears. Once inside my cottage, I slammed the door shut and locked it tight. I pressed my back against it, trying to catch my breath. I could feel my skin prickling. Something wasn't right here. As I locked up and glanced around my room, I realized that the walls felt like they were closing in. Then, everything went dark. I jolted awake, disoriented. Darkness surrounded me, thick and unnerving. My heart pounded. I fumbled for my phone, hoping to use its light. A small glow blinked on the screen, providing just enough illumination to see the outlines of my room. A creeping dread settled in my stomach. Had I really just fallen asleep? It didn't feel possible, especially considering what had just happened. Memories of the child by the lake filled my mind. His grin, that eerie laugh. I pushed myself off the floor and stood up, shaking off the sleep. I needed to get out of the cottage. My hands trembled as I flicked on a lamp. The bulb sputtered before illuminating the small space, casting long shadows. The comforting glow did little to ease my anxiety. I grabbed my camera and headed for the door. As I stepped outside, the air was cool against my skin. A heavy silence enveloped the cottage. I listened carefully, straining to catch any sound. The lake glimmered under the faint light from the occasional stars peeking through the clouds. Everything felt still, but I couldn't ignore the sensation that something was lurking outside. I took a cautious step onto the path, glancing back at the cottage. I looked toward the water, expecting to see the child again, but there was nothing, just the faint ripple of the lake. I took a deep breath and pressed further along the shoreline. Then I saw her, a girl not far from where I stood, weaving between the trees. She appeared no older than 10, her hair tangled and wild. Her dress hung loosely around her and seemed oddly mismatched, almost as if it belonged to another era. I felt a pull to approach her, but a warning screamed in my head. "Hey," I called out, my voice breaking the calm. "Are you lost?" She turned slowly, her face hidden in shadow. I couldn't see her expression, but I thought I caught a glimmer of recognition in her eyes. "No," she said softly, "but you are." My heartbeat quickened as the chill returned. "What do you mean?" I took a cautious step closer, trying to gauge her response. She smiled, a haunting resemblance to the boy I saw earlier. "You shouldn't be here. They don't like strangers by the lake." Her words lingered in the air, echoing the barista's warning. "What do you mean?" "What from me?" I asked, my voice shaky. She started to walk backward, disappearing slowly into the darkness. "You'll find out when the time comes." I stood frozen, processing her words. Just then, a rustling caught my attention behind me. I turned quickly, but saw nothing. The emptiness around me felt suffocating, and I realized I was not alone. Running back to the cottage wasn't an option anymore. My instincts screamed at me to stay with the girl. She might be my only connection to understanding what was happening. But before I could decide, she stopped, her eyes wide with fright. "Run!" she yelled, her voice sharp against the night. Before I could react, shadows emerged from the trees, rushing toward us. I took a step back, frantic, too stunned to think. The girl's voice echoed, "They're coming!" I didn't know what "they" were, but I felt a primal urge to escape. As I turned to run, I realized in that moment I had no idea what I had stumbled into. I ran. My legs moved before my brain could catch up. I dashed along the shoreline, the cold ground biting into my bare feet. The sounds of rustling leaves and snapping twigs grew louder behind me. I didn't dare look back. The girl's warning echoed in my mind. "They're coming." I thought about the cottage. Should I head back? Panic twisted my gut. No, I couldn't go back. Whatever was chasing us wouldn't stop. I stumbled over a root and nearly fell, but I regained my balance, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The trees around me closed in, their branches like gnarled hands reaching toward the night sky. I needed light. I fumbled for my phone, remembering the small glow it offered. I took it out and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing the path ahead. I scanned the area, half expecting to see the shadows creeping closer. But there was nothing, yet. Then I heard a giggle, light and airy, floating through the silence. I froze, heart racing. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. Another giggle followed, closer this time. My skin prickled as I realized it sounded similar to the child's laugh from before, familiar yet unsettling. "Is someone there?" I repeated, but no one answered. Fear and curiosity battled inside me. I wasn't alone. I knew it. The girl had warned me, but I was drawn in again. Against my better judgment, I took a few steps toward the sound. The flashlight illuminated a small clearing ahead. "Over here," a voice beckoned softly, almost playful. I rushed into the clearing, swinging the light around. There was the girl again, standing by a tree. But she wasn't alone. Beside her was another child, this one a boy, with a sullen expression, his fingers playing with the dirt. They both looked at me with wide, expectant eyes. "Why are you being so slow?" the boy asked. "You're supposed to run."
Didn't know what to say. The shadows were still out there. I felt exposed in the opening. "What do you mean? Where do I run to?" "To the boat!" the girl exclaimed, pointing behind them. I turned to see a small rowboat tied to a weathered dock just a few feet away. My instinct told me to get to the water, but every part of that idea felt wrong. Ignoring my doubts, I sprinted toward the boat, and the children followed closely. We reached it just as the sound of rustling grew more intense. The girl hopped into the boat, her bare feet dangling over the side. "Quick, hurry!" she urged. I hesitated, glancing back at the darkness closing in. I could see figures flitting behind the trees, just out of reach of the light. As if sensing my decision, the boy tugged at my arm. "They won't follow you on the water, just trust us." The shadows were near now, closing in like a living nightmare. With trembling hands, I climbed into the boat, and as I settled in, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. The children's eyes shone with something between mischief and fear, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping deeper into a trap. Just as I was about to voice my concern, the girl shoved off from the dock with surprising strength. The boat drifted away from the shore,
and the familiar laughter of the children echoed behind us, melding perfectly with the sound of something sinister lurking just out of sight. Suddenly, an all-consuming darkness swept over the lake as the clouds moved in, blocking the stars. Panic filled my chest. That's when I saw it, a shadowy figure rising from the water, twisting and contorting into a grotesque shape. It reached for us, and I realized the girl was right. I was trapped in a nightmare I had only just begun to understand. As the shadowed figure loomed over us, my instincts kicked in. I turned to the children, but their faces were eerily calm, almost excited. "Look!" the girl shouted, pointing at the murky ripples. "It's trying to play." Play? A surge of fear took over my heart. This wasn't a game. The figure twisted in the water, its limbs stretching like dark tendrils reaching for the boat. I felt the cold spray of the lake against my skin as the boat rocked beneath us. "We need to get out of here," I shouted, my voice barely breaking through the panic. "Just watch," the boy urged, eyes wide with fascination. I glanced back at the spectral form. It glided closer, its features becoming clearer or maybe more grotesque. A sharp grin spread across its face, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "Stay close." I gripped the sides of the boat, desperate to keep us steady. The girl, however, leaned over the side, mesmerized by the creature beneath us. "It wants to play," she repeated, dancing on the edge of her seat. "Are you crazy?" Yelled, pulling her back. The last thing I wanted was for the lake to swallow us whole. Just then, the figure lunged forward, its hands snapping like branches breaking. I reacted on instinct, shoving the girl back as the water erupted around us. My heart was in my throat as I felt the movement below, the force of the shadow sending ripples and waves crashing against the sides of the boat. "We have to paddle," I shouted, finally shaking the daze of fear. "Get us to shore." The boy grabbed an old oar, his expression shifting from playful to serious. The girl leaned against the side of the boat, still captivated as the creature circled us, almost teasingly. I fumbled for the other oar, my hands shaking. Together we began to paddle with all our might, desperation fueling each stroke. But the creature didn't retreat. It rose higher in the water, a head of dark, tangled hair and hollow eyes boring into us. "You can't leave," it crooned, the voice echoing around the lake, thick and dripping with malice. I fought against the terror clawing at my chest. "What does it want?" I screamed, looking around for any sign of help. The shoreline felt impossibly far away. "Why is it doing this?" "It just wants to play," the girl chimed in again, her smile unnervingly wide. "You can't be scared of it. It's only trying to have fun." "Fun? No, it's dangerous," I panicked, each stroke feeling weaker as the creature gained on us. My mind raced, piecing together how I had ended up in this nightmare. My fingers slipped on the oar, and I nearly let it go. Then, just as the shadow made another swipe, my foot caught on a loose plank in the boat. I lost my balance and stumbled, nearly tipping us all into the water. The creature laughed, a horrible sound that chilled me to my core. That's when a sudden splash caught my attention. A figure emerged from the depths, another child, this one completely soaked and wide-eyed but smiling serenely. "Join us!" they shouted, their voice ringing out as they broke the surface. The realization hit me like a brick. "No, don't!" I shouted, horrified as more figures began to swirl in the water, faces emerging with haunting grins. My heart raced. Whatever this was, it was drawing us in. As the children around me watched, their expressions innocent yet unsettling, I realized I needed to escape. Someone had to break free of this chaos. I braced myself. "We need to go back," I yelled, looking at the other two, now caught in a trance. "We can't play anymore. We have to fight."
The creatures were closing in, and time ran thin. Just ahead of me, murky water bubbled ominously, the surface foaming as if it were alive. That's when I understood the truth. There was no way out until I faced whatever was lurking beneath. I clenched my jaw and took a deep breath, readying myself for whatever came next.
I gripped the oar tightly as I scanned the faces of the children. They were lost, caught in a mesmerizing web of enchantment cast by the creature in the water. "Snap out of it!" I shouted, desperation rising in my voice. A loud roar filled my ears, and the figure lunged again, sending water sloshing over the sides of the boat. Panic surged through me. I couldn't let the beast win. With a sudden resolve, I turned toward the girl. "Look at me!" I screamed. "Please, we have to fight!" Her gaze flickered for a moment, confusion crossing her features. "I want to play," she mumbled, almost as if in a trance. The boy, however, focused on me, his eyes narrowing as if the fog was lifting. "What do we do?" he asked, fear creeping into his voice. "Paddle," I suggested, my heart pounding. "Keep moving. We can make it to the shore if we keep our heads." I plunged my oar deep into the water, feeling the resistance as I thrust it forward again. The boat lurched, and the kids joined in, albeit slowly, still captive to whatever power the creature wielded. But it was too late. The shadowy figure surged upward, its form technically shifting and expanding until it towered above us. "Join us!" the creature howled, the chilling voice echoing through the air. It reached out, fingers extending as if to seize the girl who still hovered near the edge. "No!" I shouted, lunging forward to pull her back. The weight of its presence bore down on the boat, and the water began to churn violently beneath us, as if agitated by the creature's anger. Suddenly, without warning, one of the other children, another apparition that had been floating nearby, ducked under the surface and began to swim towards us. The horror twisted in my gut. The boy and I exchanged glances of disbelief as waves splashed over the sides, soaking us both. I turned to the other child. "Get back!" I yelled, but they only kept smiling, eyes wide and shimmering with a strange light. The shoreline flickered in the distance, slowly becoming a fading memory as I fought to focus on the task at hand. The creature laughed again, a noise that rattled my bones. "You can't escape." The water surged, and it lunged closer. I could feel its cold breath against my face, the swirling darkness beckoning. "Keep paddling," I urged, not caring how desperate I sounded. I swirled the oar with wild strokes, feeling the strength of adrenaline surge through my limbs. The others followed, but hesitated, seemingly caught in indecision. I shouted again, "Fight it! Do you want to join it? Is that what you want?" Then something shifted. The girl blinked, returning to reality with a gasp. What is happening?" she stammered, the weight of the creature's influence fading from her face. "I don't know," the boy called out, looking from her back to the approaching shadow, "but we need to get away, now." Just then, a violent splash erupted next. To the boat, sending water crashing over us. I darted to the side to see the submerged child lunging upward, grasping for my arm. Their fingers brushed my skin, and I felt an icy jolt as their eyes locked onto mine. A pleading and sinister gaze mixed together. In that moment, I understood the horror. They didn't just want to play. They wanted more than that. They wanted more than that. They wanted to pull us into their world. I hung in the balance, caught between what I wanted to do and the danger before me. Suddenly, the lake quieted, and an ominous silence enveloped us. The creatures paused, watching, waiting. And then, as if the air itself had shifted, a loud crack sounded from beneath us. The water began to bubble again, and I recognized that our moment was slipping away. We had to act fast. My heart raced. This was no game anymore. I gripped the oar harder, my knuckles turning white. The lake bubbled ominously beneath us, and fear tightened around my throat. We had to get out of here. Just keep paddling, don't stop, I urged, my voice breaking as I tried to encourage the others. The boy and the girl listened, but the other children were still lost in their haze, their gazes fixed on the creature lurking beneath the surface. The water splashed wildly around us, propelled by the creature's imminent anger. Then I noticed the girl again. She was staring at the water, entranced once more. "No, don't look," I yelled, but it felt like I was shouting into a void. The shadow in the depths loomed closer, glistening dark scales catching the thin light filtering through the clouds. Suddenly, something tugged at my leg. I glanced down, and it was the submerged child, face just below the surface, eyes wide and pleading. Their mouth opened, but I couldn't hear anything over the creature's roar. Panic surged again. I couldn't let them take me too. I couldn't let anyone. Then, without thinking, I shifted my weight and kicked at the water, splashing the child away from me. "Get away!" I shouted, my voice cracking with desperation. They began to sink deeper, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they were still smiling, as if I had just made a game out of this horror. The surface of the lake rippled violently as the beast's massive tail struck upward. It sent a wave crashing over the boat, soaking us through. My throat tightened, and I gritted my teeth against the chill of the water. "Paddle harder! We're almost there!" I yelled. I could barely see the shore now, a blur of green and brown through the sheets of rain and the turbulence of the dark water. The boy and girl struggled beside me, determination etched onto their young faces, but the creature was relentless. A sudden gust of wind sent my hair flying. I turned to see the creature ready to strike again, massive jaws opening wide. That's when I saw it, a glimmering object floating near the
edge of the boat. It was a small silver charm, catching the light as the water swirled around it. I reached for it instinctively, the urge to grab it overpowering. "Wait, we need to!" But it was too late. The charm slipped beneath the surface, vanishing into the darkness. My heart sank for a moment, but then I felt something shift inside of me. It was as if the weight pressing down was lighter. A spark of clarity broke through the chaos, and I realized I had to focus. "Distract it!" I shouted. "Make noise! Wave your arms!" I could see the boy's face flood with confusion, but he shouted back, "What are you talking about?" "Just do it," I insisted, and without thinking twice, I started banging my oar against the side of the boat, creating a loud chopping sound. The creature paused, eyes narrowing at us. It roared, the noise echoing around us, as the others joined in, splashing wildly and shouting. The intensity of our collective voices filled the air, drowning out the fear. Then, for the briefest moment, that silver charm emerged again, shimmering just beyond the boat's side. My heart raced. Maybe it was a key, a way to break the spell. Reaching out, I leaned over the edge, heart racing, fingers brushing the water. "Almost there," I whispered to myself. I knew we had one last shot. But as I leaned further, a dark shadow shifted under the surface. Suddenly, everything went quiet again. The air around us thickened impossibly, and I felt that familiar sense of dread wash over me like cold rain. What did that charm mean? And what if it was too late? The silence was deafening. Our shouts faded into the newfound stillness, and I gripped the edge of the boat, my heart racing as I scanned the surface of the water. I didn't know what was coming, but I felt it looming, like shadows stretching under the weight of an approaching storm. "Why did it stop?" the boy whispered, his voice trembling. The girl beside him stared at me wide-eyed. I didn't have an answer. All I could do was strain my ears, trying to hear anything besides my own ragged breaths. Then a low ripple broke the glassy surface. I squinted and saw a figure emerging from the depths. My gut twisted as I recognized the child I had kicked away. They were rising back up, but it wasn't just them. More figures followed, floating eerily as if the water itself was carrying them to us. I felt bile rise in my throat. Their faces were pale, almost ghostly,
and their eyes were hollow. "Help us," they whispered in a sing-song voice, their lips barely moving. The other children shifted uncomfortably, glancing at me for guidance. "No, stay back," I shouted, pushing the oar forward as if it could separate us from this nightmare. The figures hesitated, caught between the air and the water, then began to close in again. I could almost see their small hands.
Reaching out, beckoning. "Join us," they begged, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "It's safe beneath the surface." I snapped my head back to the shore, my only hope, but it still seemed so far away. "Paddle, now!" I screamed, adrenaline propelling my arms. The boy and girl joined me, but the others were still rooted, entranced by the call of the water. "Why don't you want to come play?" the first child asked, their voice echoing eerily in my ears. "Because you're not real," I yelled, my voice full of fear. "You're just something from the lake." "Don't fight it," another voice chimed in, softer, luring. "We can have so much fun together." The water rippled again, as if the lake was laughing at our struggle. Someone splashed. The girl who had been staring. She was reaching for the hands of the specters. I lunged forward, grabbing her arm. "Don't! You can't trust them!" But her eyes looked glazed, lost in a world I could never understand. "It's beautiful down there," she murmured, inching closer to the edge of the boat. Desperation clawed at me. There had to be a way out. I thought back to that silver charm, the spark of clarity it offered. "We need to make sound, now!" I shouted again, banging my oar against the boat, louder this time, the sharp noise cutting through their spell. The figures recoiled, their faces twisting into angry, hissing expressions. The water darkened around them, pulling them back, as if the lake itself was trying to keep its secrets buried. "There's no fun up there," I shouted. "You don't want this." The boy kicked at the water, splashing wildly. "Stop it! Get back!" he screamed. We were all panicking now, every instinct urging us to fight back against whatever dark magic lay in those depths. But it was the moment I glanced back at the shore that sent shivers racing down my spine. A silhouette stood at the water's edge, watching intently, a figure cloaked in shadows. I couldn't make out who they were, but something about their presence felt wrong. "What is that?" the girl whispered, still caught in their call. I could feel the threat hanging in the air, heavier than the water surrounding us. The figures began pulling back, but that silhouette seemed to be pulling the strings. I had to know, was this a rescue or another trap? "Who are you?" I shouted to the figure, but they stood silent, unmoving. A chill raced through me. I suddenly realized this wasn't just about the lake anymore. Something much darker was waiting for us, and we had just scratched the surface. The tension in the air hung like a thick fog, stifling and oppressive. I turned my gaze back to the spectral children, their pleading faces twisting into expressions of rage. Panic shot through me. I needed to get us away from here, but the boat felt frozen, anchored in fear. Suddenly, the boy beside me moved closer to the edge, his eyes darting between the water and the figure. On the shore. "What if they're telling the truth?" he murmured, and my heart sank. "What if it really is safe down there?" "No!" I snapped, gripping the oar tighter. "It's not safe. Look at them. They're not alive." The urgency in my voice crackled through the boat like electricity. Every muscle in my body screamed for action. The girl who had been entranced gave a sudden jerk. Her dazed expression broke for a moment. "They need us," she whispered. Then her hand slipped from my grasp, and she leaned over the edge, mesmerized by the dark depths. "No, please," I shouted, lunging forward to pull her back. But as my fingers grasped her arm, an icy wave surged through the boat. It felt like the very water was pushing against us, trying to drag her into its depths. "Help us!" the children cried again, the sound mingling with the rush of the water.
I felt a strange tug in my mind, something like a voice whispering temptations and promises. I shook my head, willing the feeling away. My thoughts raced. "We have to make noise, more noise," I yelled. "We need to break this." With that, I began banging the oar against the side of the boat, a wild rhythm thrumming in the stillness. The others joined in, drumming and shouting. The cacophony shattered the eerie calm, and to my relief, the spectral figures began to twist away, faces contorting in anger. But then, the silhouette at the shore moved for the first time. It stepped forward, revealing a twisted form that seemed to absorb the light around it. My breath caught as I tried to make sense of it. There was something distinctly human about their shape, but their features were hidden in shadow. "Come to us," they rasped, their voice mingling with the distant whispers of the children. "Leave your pain behind." I locked eyes with the boy, the weight of desperation keeping me from looking back. "We can't stay here. We need to get to land," I yelled, panic spilling into my voice. Suddenly, the girl jerked back, snapping out of her daze. "Wait!" she shouted, her voice raw with emotion. "What if we can help them?" "No!" I cried, feeling the words ricochet inside my head. "They need to be left alone." Our rhythm faltered as uncertainty erupted within the boat. I could feel the water shifting under us, each wave a pulse of the lake's hidden anger. The spectral children hovered there, their voices becoming a dissonant choir, tugging at a part of me I was afraid to acknowledge. The figure on the shore pressed closer, becoming more solid. "You cannot leave," it hissed, and in that moment I saw its eyes, deep pits of shadow that seemed to draw in all the light. My instincts screamed at me to escape. I fumbled with the oar, pushing it into the water with renewed vigor, yelling for everyone to paddle harder. The boat shook as we fought against the tide. Then went dark. A sudden wave crashed over us, pulling the boat sideways. I grabbed onto the side, my panic crashing against every thought. That's when I saw it, glimmering in the water, something silver shining beneath the surface. It was my charm, the one I'd lost. As I reached for it, I felt the sharp grasp of fingers wrap around my wrist, pulling me down. The world around me drowned in the depths of the lake, and instinct kicked in. I wrenched away from that icy grip, kicking and flailing to break free from whatever cursed hold had grasped me. My lungs screamed for air as I broke the surface, gasping in the cool night air. Everything felt wrong, like a twisted circus just above the water. The boat rocked violently, jolting me back to the chaos. I barely registered the spectral children weaving in and out of shadows, their faces carved in desperation. "Come back!" they chorused, their voices layered, echoing in the very fabric of night. The figure on the shore loomed closer, a dark silhouette merging with the trees, drawing me into its depths. For a moment, I believed it wanted to offer solace, an escape. But then I saw it more clearly. A twisted grin, lips peeling back in anticipation. Panic surged through me like a wild current. I felt deep within my gut that there was no peace to be found here, only a web of deceit waiting to ensnare the unwary. The charm, dredged up beneath the swirling surface, flickered with potential, its luster a beacon amidst the darkness. "Paddle!" I screamed, scrabbling up the side of the boat. But the echoes of the children's pleas sank deep into my bones. The girl was staring into the depths, entranced, the other children following suit. The boy, however, was still at my side, fighting the pull. "We have to go," I shouted. "Stay focused." He nodded, eyes wide with a mix of fear and resolve. Together, we began to row with every ounce of strength left in us. As we paddled, the din of phantom laughter cut through the night like shards of glass, promising the warmth of friendship while chilling me to the core. Each stroke felt heavier, the water seeming to throb as if alive with the power of the shadows. The shoreline loomed, dark and distant, like a forgotten promise. "Just keep watching it," I urged the boy. "Whatever you see, don't bow to it." The silhouette at the edge of the trees took a half-step forward, becoming a swirling mass of limbs and whispers, stretching fingers eager to entwine around us. It was almost upon us, the darkness hungry for our surrender. Gritting my teeth, I raised the oar high and slammed it against the boat. The echo rang out, and I felt the spell break for just a moment, reverberating in the air, knocking the entranced children temporarily back to reality. "Don't listen," I hollered. For the first time, I saw recognition flood their faces, but the spell was
Still strong. "Help us!" they wailed again, this time in desperate tones, pulling at the tender strings of empathy. "Join us forever!" My heart lurched as visions of my own childhood flitted in and out, playgrounds, laughter, the sun glinting on the water in memories now faded. But I pushed them back. That siren call wasn't safe. This wasn't a game. This was survival. The boy yelled for everyone to paddle, and just as I felt the boat lurch again, I stole a glance at the shimmering charm, glittering just out of reach beneath the surface. "It's a trap!" I yelled. "Don't look down!" But the other children, still fighting the pull of the creature, just stared into the depths, their wills bending beneath unseen forces, faces twisting back to joy as childlike laughter floated through the darkness. Something within me twisted, regret, loss, longing for the innocence we all once had. I turned back to my focus, leaning over the side to grip the edge of the boat. The shoreline was so close now, just a few more strokes, a few more seconds. But the rhythm was slipping. Not everyone was on board. "Paddle! Paddle!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. The water darkened, rippling against the boat as the figures inched closer, the creature made of liquid night driving its grip tighter around us. "You can't leave!" the voice echoed from the depths, insistent and dark. Then something shifted, pulling me sharply toward the charm one last time. Desperate, I lunged, a final surge of adrenaline flared. I gripped it, feeling its cool smoothness brush against my palm. It held a power, a latent energy I couldn't explain. Was it hope? Or had I just crossed the final threshold? With a final cry that cut through the stifling darkness, I held it aloft, my focus unwavering now. My voice rang clear, and in rhythm with the beating of my heart, I shouted, "I refuse to stay in this game." Everything shifted at once. It felt as if the water was folding in on itself, and hissing tendrils rose, retreating as the shadows shrieked in harmonious dismay. The children flinched, their sprites of joy smothered beneath the weight of the charm's light, as the shadow creature twisted in anguish. A wave surged, the boat tipped, but this time I held on, and the light guided me. A cacophony erupted, the water blasted upward, shadows recoiling into the depths, the pressure of darkness dissipating like smoke unraveling under intense light. Paddles splashed as we struggled to maintain balance, and I felt a shift, a surge in the boat's momentum. Glancing to the shore, I could see the comforting greenery rush toward us, a promise of something brighter. All the while, the whispers faded into silence, a final cry resounding with the last remnants of the otherworldly presence as the darkness receded. With one final heave, the boat struck firm against the shore. The children stumbled out, shaking free of their blank stares, as I jumped onto the bank. The air cold against my skin. I turned back to see the silhouettes retreat, the lake whispering its secrets once again. We stood breathless, staring at the rippling water, every heartbeat swift with relief. The stars blinked overhead, though the shadows lingered just beneath the surface, watching. I looked at the children, and fear and uncertainty filled that moment. Who would they be now?
Had they been claiming the lake as the beast's own? And the silhouette at the edge of the trees? Perhaps it was a savior, some harbinger of what could have been, or worse, a stealer of innocence yet to come. I'd escaped, and yet I knew just beneath the surface the truth spiraled still, unfathomable, dark, and beyond reach. As I took a step away, I could still feel its presence lingering like a distant echo in my mind. The lakeside faded into night, and just like that, I headed into the uncertain dawn. I would never forget the children. I would never forget those shimmering depths. But I didn't look back as I pulled my camera from the water's edge. In that moment, I captured the fleeting beauty, the light, the darkness, the unanswered questions that would haunt me forever.